Greetings, Universe of X. I know I haven't been on here in a while, but I wanted to go live tonight because I was in a conversation earlier here on X, and the conversation was with respect to the situation with U.S. Interim Attorney Alina Habba, and clearly, in the going in the back and forth, I can tell. I got the impression that maybe there are people that don't understand exactly how this system of laws works with respect to this situation. I read the statute, and from my interpretation, Desiree Grace's appointment stands. Now, I don't know if maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I don't know. But I thought I'd bring it out here and I'd talk about it and to see, what the general consensus is. Now, little background here. Alina Habba was appointed as an interim U.S. attorney by President Donald Trump, and there's a statute, a section called USC 28, Section 546, that specifically outlines how long she can be the interim before she's confirmed, and what the steps are in the event that her term expires or the appointment expires, what the steps are that can be taken. Now, let's dive into really quick this specific statute, because this statute appears to be either ignored or it doesn't appear to be accepted by a lot of people, and that they're the ones that are saying, well, she's already been the court's appointment has already been removed and Habba has been replaced. Now, the thing is, there's no legal standing for that, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So this is the statute. I'm going to put it on the screen. This is USC 28, Section 546, I believe is the number, if I'm correct. The key points that we need to focus on are subsection C, 1 and 2, and subsection D. Okay? Subsection C says a person appointed as a United States attorney under this section may serve until the earlier of one of these two instances. 1, the qualification of a United States attorney for such district appointed by the president under Section 541 of this title. In other words, unless the president assigns another attorney or the attorney is confirmed, basically. Or the expiration of 120 days after the appointment by the Attorney General under this section. What does this mean? This means that the person appointed, in this case Alina Habba, can serve until the first one of these two expires. In this case, the first one of these two is the 120 days, because her term ends, I believe, July 30th. So, and she has not been confirmed by the Senate yet, and it doesn't look like she will be confirmed before the end of the 120 days. So, according to the statute, at 120 days, she's out. Okay? Now, what's important is when we read Section D. Section D says this, and I'm going to read it word for word. It says, if an appointment expires under subsection C2, which is the expiration of the 120 days after the appointment, the district court for that district, or for such district, may appoint a United States attorney to serve until the vacancy is filled. The order of appointment by the court shall be filed with the clerk of the court. So, in other words, basically the court has the right to appoint a replacement at the end of the 120 days, which is what they did, accordingly, because they knew her 120 days are going to be over by the end of this weekend, by the 30th of next week. So they went ahead and they appointed a replacement, in this case, Desiree Grace. Okay, so Desiree Grace is that replacement. What happens here is that Bondi said, no, not so fast. What these judges did is rogue. She's calling them rogue, and that what they did was not right. The problem is what they did falls legally under the statute and is illegal. There's nothing rogue about operating under a federal statute. In this case, 28 U.S.C. Section 546. So her argument in that respect is no, I guess you could say. So what is going to happen? That's the question. What is going to end up happening? Well, we can look and analyze the scenario and see exactly what's going on, and determine what is going to happen. What is probably going to happen is that at the end of, and I'm going to put this scenario up here in just a minute. What is probably going to happen is that at the end of the 120 days, Hava's going to show up in court, and the judges are going to say, okay, you're no longer the interim attorney, your term is expired. The acting attorney now is Desiree Grace. And then what will probably happen is that Bondi and the DOJ and Hava are going to challenge this in court. When they challenge this in court, what's going to happen? Let's look at this little information that I pulled up, a little research that I did through some sources. Background-wise, let's look at this. It says that federal law, 28 U.S.C. 546, and I'm right, allows district court judges to appoint a U.S. attorney if the presidential appointee, Alina Hava, isn't confirmed by the Senate within 120 days. That statute was triggered on July 22nd, 2025, when New Jersey district judges appointed Grace as Hava's replacement. Okay? That's what basically happened. Now, it says, Bondi, serving as Attorney General under the Trump administration, removed Grace hours later, calling the court's move rogue and emphasizing presidential authority. Okay, the question here is, what authority is she talking about? So, this creates legal tensions. Legal tensions on, number one, the judicial authority, which the statute grants judges final say over interim U.S. attorney appointments if the president's nominee isn't Senate confirmed within 120 days. Only the president, not the AG, can remove a court-appointed U.S. attorney. Here's the separation of powers issue. Is they're saying that the Attorney General does not have the authority that only the president does. Now, Bondi asserts that the AG, reflecting core Article 2 powers, can remove Grace and maintain Hava, but it's not certain. DOJ and Trump allies, it says here, cite presidential supremacy over executive branch personnel. Now, what we have to understand is this, that we have three branches of government. We have the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. Each branch is independent of the other. They have their own authorities. This is what we call our system of checks and balances. It's what allows the courts to check and cite and confirm whether these branches are doing aligns with the Constitution and federal law. That's called judicial interpretation. What's happening here is that, and this is part of the issue with the division that we've had in our nation, it's gotten to a point where it is now ideology over federal law, when it should be the inverse. It should be federal law over ideology. We have a controversy there, okay? And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But basically, what is happening is it's creating judicial tension. It's creating separation of powers tension. Okay? Let's go back to the chart. Okay? So who in this case is right and who is wrong? Very interesting, huh? Well, if we look at it, legal precedent and statutory interpretation, the statute, the law, strongly favors the judicial appointment as being legitimate and protected from unilateral removal by the AG. The statute protects the courts. The AG's firing of Grace raises serious separation of powers issues, and it is contrary, or appears contrary, to the clear language of the statute of 28 U.S.C. 546, which is what I showed you earlier. So there is a conflict there. That being said, what's going to have to happen is that Bondi and the DOJ are going to have to file a suit and challenge via formal legal opinion on the matter to determine who is right and who's wrong. Now, here's the thing. If Bondi escalates this via the courts, if she goes through with the legal challenge, a federal lawsuit or injunction would likely have to happen. And this would land before the Third Circuit Court or the Supreme Court. But what will happen is, if it does land before them, the statute itself will favor the courts. It's not going to work in favor of the DOJ. I don't see that happening. The law is quite clear. The bottom line, Grace's court-appointed tenure likely legally stands, in other words, because of the statute, unless the Department of Justice pursues and wins a courtroom challenge. But the question is, can they win a courtroom challenge when you have a statute that clearly is against you? Bondi's firing action doesn't nullify the judge's appointment, and this is very important. What Bondi did does not nullify what the judge's decision was under existing law. Only the president can remove her, okay, per the statute and customary executive limits. Now, I'm not going to go into those limits right now because of time constraints, but we have to observe those executive limits to determine whether or not the president can remove Grace. What we can expect is that there will be a legal showdown when this gets challenged in the courts, because that's what's going to have to happen. As I said, basically what is going to happen is that when Habit shows up in the court after the term is over, she's going to probably get removed or thrown out because she is no longer legally the Attorney General for that court. And when that gets challenged in the courts, that's when we're going to see this play out. And it's going to be basically AG authority versus statutory judicial appointment power, and the enforceability of the judge's orders. So we know that what's going to happen is it's going to go to the courts. Now, whether or not the DOJ can win this is very iffy. There has not been a precedent set for something like this. There wasn't another case before, and I don't remember the name of the attorney that it happened to, but it was never formally contested in the courts. So there is no precedent to favor the DOJ in this. What will happen is that, in a nutshell, it will probably be the judges' appointments that will be, or will have, the legal standing. Plain and simple. As I said, this is because, and I was earlier tonight, as I said, I was on X and I was commenting back and forth, and the general tenor of the conversation was that what is done, that the AG had the authority to do what they had to do. I don't see that because the statute doesn't give her the authority. Neither does she have the authority under the Constitution. This is the thing. Because of all the division, everything that's gone on in our nation since COVID here, our country has begun and is already basically taking ideology over federal law. That's a no-no. We should be analyzing and following federal law and scrutinizing ideology. Because ideology doesn't necessarily follow the law. And we have evidence of this with everything that the presidential administration has done in the last 6 or 7 months. If we look closely, there were a lot of areas where the president, his administration, circumvented a lot of procedures and a lot of laws to do and get done what they wanted to get done. They chose to push ideological view instead of following the very written letter of the law. You don't do that. You don't do that because you cannot break the laws that you are sworn to uphold. When the president this is very important what I'm about to say. When the president took office, he swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, to uphold the laws, to execute the laws of this nation. By circumventing these laws, he is throwing his oath out the window. Plain and simple. He's allowing an ideology to dictate what is right and wrong, not what the laws say. That's very crucial. I don't care if you're a Republican, I don't care if you're a liberal, I don't care if you're a progressive. The law is the law. And as individuals, as Americans, as elected officials, you are sworn to uphold each and every law. That's not happening here. That's not happening here. Example, the president signed an executive order trying to remove birthright citizenship. He circumvented a major process that is required to be able to do that, called the constitutional amendment. Why? Because with the executive order, he is trying to rewrite constitutional law. He is trying to rewrite an amendment in the Constitution. You cannot do that without amending that Constitution, amending that amendment. There's a certain process to do that. He chose not to do it. Why? Because more than likely he knows it can never be done. It has not been done in decades, in centuries. And his only way to do it is to circumvent the procedure that is required to do so. That's why his executive order was blocked. Because he's trying to change the wording of the Constitution, of the constitutional amendment. And you can't do that. It's why he's trying to redo the spending by closing departments, by micromanaging and reducing things down in the executive branch. Because he's circumventing the responsibilities of Congress. Another procedure. He's circumventing a lot of laws and a lot of procedures based on ideology. And as a nation, we as Americans, we need to scrutinize what is ideological and what is law. And the law should always stand. Ideology cannot stand over law because it is not law in any way, shape, or form. It is a belief, it is an idea, it is a belief by individuals that believe that that idea is the correct idea. But it is not law. It is not federal law. And that is something so very important that we need to observe. We need to scrutinize ideology, but we need to follow the letter of the law. It's why the president has circumvented due process with immigrants. He doesn't want to follow the procedure. Why? Because it doesn't suit his ideology. In a nutshell, ideology is what is killing our country today. Ideology is what is destroying our nation today. We need to scrutinize it, and we need to analyze it against the letter of the law and follow what the letter of the law says. I can't stress that enough. This is everything that I've shared tonight. This is what I've read, what I've researched. I'm based on reading the statutes. I'm assuming that what I'm saying is right, because it is. Maybe I'm missing a legal precedent. I'm missing another statute. I don't know. I'm welcome to input in the comments. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's something other individuals that I've been commenting back and forth are missing, and we're not connecting. I don't know. But as it stands, what the AG did, according to USC 28-546, she has no standing to do it. And Desiree Grace is legally the interim U.S. attorney at this time when Haba's term ceases and expires. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been informative, and I hope that I've made a lot of people think about this, because this is something that we as Americans need to think, because we're the ones that need to pressure our elected officials to address these type of scenarios. But if we don't make our voices known, they're not going to do anything. So, in a nutshell, this is basically, what I believe is what needs to be done. And that is, this is going to have to run its course, and we're going to have to see what Bondi and the DOJ decide to do. If they do challenge it, it is entirely, plausible that they are going to lose. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you, X, and I hope that you'll have a good night. I will try to come back live soon and not be away for so long. I've been a lot going on. I'm working evenings now. Can't be on the computer in the evenings like I used to be when I did these lives. But I'm going to try to go live more frequently here in the next couple weeks or so, now that I have a little bit of time to do so. So thank you for your time and your attention, and I will enjoy reading your comments on this subject. I find it interesting. I find it anytime I deal with analyzing the laws, I find it interesting. And I think as Americans, we should do this. One thing that I recommend before I end this stream is that I recommend, as Americans, that we pay close attention to the laws. There's a lot going on with politicians saying that the federal judges are rogue, that the federal judges are wrong. But I think what's happening is that these politicians, they're not sitting down, they're not reading the rulings, they're not comparing the legal precedents, the legal statutes that these rulings are referring to, and they're not seeing whether or not there is legal standing for these judges' rulings. And I think if they do analyze the rulings and they analyze the statutes that are referred, they'll see that there's more to it than the judge being activist or rogue. He's actually following the law. And I think as Americans, we need to be observant in that. And as Americans, we need to be responsible enough to pressure our elected officials and saying, okay, you're looking at this from an ideological viewpoint, but what does the law say? What does the law say with respect to what the judge is talking about? And I think our politicians need to accept the law for what it is, plain and simple. And that's what's not happening. That's just